What do people say gives them like, oh, I can't vote for him because what are the things that they tell you? What answers can I help you provide?
Let me go ahead and stop you. That's not a good sign when a person asks you a question like that, and then you got this just calling it for what it is. This older white couple in Iowa. They look at each other. Why are you looking at each other? That can mean one or two things from my perspective. One, I don't know. What do you think? You're not so sure what the answer is, so you look at your partner to see if they know, to see if you can get ideas from each other. Or two, should we tell her the truth? Should we be honest with her? Are you going to be honest with her, or should I be honest with her? I don't want to be honest with her. That's how I look at that first and foremost. So that's already not a good sign in my opinion.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.
So Vivek Ramaswamy has officially dropped out of the 2024 presidential race.
You were following breaking news tonight. Vivek Ramaswamy out of the race for the Republican presidential nomination. He just made the announcement after a disappointing finish at the Iowa caucuses. Ramaswamy endorsing Donald Trump for president. It leaves Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis as the last major challengers to Trump.
And you may say, oh man, but you just dropped a video yesterday saying that this man is the best presidential candidate you've ever seen. I stand by that. Everything I said is true in that video. Everything in that video still applies. But let's be clear. Vivek Ramaswamy never had a shot at winning this election. I started off the last video by saying that I think that Vivek Ramaswamy is going to shock the world and that I hope I'm right by that. What I should have said was, I hope that Vivek Ramaswamy shocks the world. But let's be clear, he never had a shot to win this election for two very big reasons that was never going to change. I'm going to show you a video of Apurva Ramaswamy, Vivek Ramaswamy's wife, talking to a woman in Iowa that's a voter, and she simply asked this woman, what are some of the reasons that you're hearing people are skeptical or a little bit hesitant to vote for Vivek? And this woman flat out told her something that I think is the obvious. But before we get into that, there's a couple of things I need to clear up just real fast. Number one, the system. A lot of people in my last video hopped in. It's like 300 comments. You got all these people down there, many of them saying, hey, he's a plant. Hey, he's a part of the agenda. Hey, listen, for all of you who feel that way and think that way and are very skeptical of Vivek Ramaswamy, every one of you that I responded to yesterday, what did I say? I'm not opposed to that. In other words, I'm not doubting what you're saying. I think that's a very strong possibility. And let's be very clear, and this is not a contradiction. Both things can be true. I think that if you get anywhere near the White House, you are a part of the agenda. Because I believe all of this stuff, I don't believe that presidents, if you don't know this, that I feel this way, I don't believe that presidents are elected. I believe that presidents are selected. I believe they know who's going to be in the White House beforehand. I think all of this stuff is just a circus. I do. But at the same time, as far as a person who's running, the way they carry themselves, their policies, their ability to articulate their policies, go in depth about their policies, the way they treat people, the way they treat protesters, right? You're talking about a model citizen in the way in which they carry themselves and the energy, the vibe, and the inspiration that they carries themselves with. Vivek Ramaswamy is by hands down, heads and shoulders above anyone and better than anyone that I've ever seen before, right? But I don't doubt that he's also a part of the system because of his history. He's 30. He was almost a billionaire by the time he was 36. Not saying that makes you a bad person, but I just look at you and I say, listen, you are operating from a different intellectual stratosphere, and I'm going to side eye you. But man, the way you run your campaign is undeniably impressive, and you're the best I've ever seen. I had to give a spade to spade. All right, boom. Number two. Systemic racism. I dropped a video about a week and a half ago saying that Vivek Ramaswamy convinced me or persuaded me otherwise on systemic racism. Let's be clear about what I mean about that. I don't mean that he convinced me that systemic racism doesn't exist. He never said that systemic racism doesn't exist. He said that it's so insignificant that we should, at this point, let it atrophy to irrelevance, right? And while I don't 100% agree with the part where he says that is so irrelevant. What I do agree with that statement is that systemic racism does not stop you or me or any other person of color from being successful. It's true. It may be a little bit harder. You may have to face some more hurdles, but you can still be successful. That's my point. I'm not saying people shouldn't be trying to still fight to dismantle some of these barriers, which is what I do in my real everyday life, if you don't know. Just making that clear, right? And there's a difference between systemic racism and institutional racism. It is not the same thing. So you say, well, it is the same. No, it's not. Institutional racism means that there are laws in place that you can go to that, inherently or literally, quite literally say, or is written into the law to be discriminatory against a different gender, a different race, people with disabilities. No. We're far too advanced in society for people to be that dumb. You're not going to be able to get away with that. Part of the reason why the civil rights era happened, part of the reason why Martin Luther King fought for some of the things he fought for, or many of the things that he fought for. No. Systemic racism is something completely different. But if I was to go into all the intricate details of the differences between the two, this video will be too long. So if you would like for me to break that down for you, which I think a lot of you will find very interesting, hop in the comment section and let me know. And I'll break that down for you. There's a difference between the two. Without a doubt, systemic racism is 100% a thing. All right? My next point. Vivek Ramaswamy never had a chance to win this presidential campaign, and I think he knew that. I just think he came into this very naive, thinking that it was going to go a particular way, and gave it his work ethic is unmatched, right? More than 390 events throughout Iowa, went to 99 counties twice. Nobody's touching that, bro. That's the most in the history of the United States of America. No presidential candidate has ever done as many campaigns as he has in such a short period of time. But let's talk about the first reason why he was never going to win this race. The first reason is 2 words: Donald Trump. Have you met a Trump supporter? Let's just be clear about something. There are things about Trump that I like. There are things about Trump I don't like. But the bias aside, I'm not on the right. I'm not on the left, right? As someone that's exited out all the noise, just look at Trump for what he is. Look at his supporters. I said in the comment section, I'm going to say it again. You can tell a lot about a presidential candidate by the way in which the majority of the presidential candidate supporters behave, right? How do most Trump supporters behave? They're, vigorously rude. They are hostile. They are occult-like. They are loyal to a fault. There's nothing wrong with being loyal. But if you're loyal to someone that's taking you off the edge of the bridge, are you still going to be loyal and follow them? No, you have to make some pivots. And you have to be able to think logically, which is ironically something that the right claims that they care about. Let's be clear about this. Donald Trump and his supporters, bro, they are not America first. They may have been before or claim to be before, but they are not America first. They are vengeance first. This is about revenge. This is about payback. They feel like the election was stolen. Not going to give my opinion on that. They feel like the election was stolen. This is about get back. You got a guy by the name of Tim Pool. A lot of you may know who that is. Tim Pool goes on his podcast and says that he really likes Vivek, but Vivek was always a plan B, and Trump is always going to be the first choice. And this is after Vivek came on to Tim Pool's podcast. Not saying that he has to support Vivek because he came on, but they had great chemistry. Vivek, I think, said everything that Tim agrees with, but he looking at this other person in Trump who don't even comes close to carrying himself the way Vivek did. And people asked him, name one thing that Trump is superior to Vivek Ramaswamy in. I'll wait. Tim said this is an easy question to answer. And then he continues to say, for starters, Donald Trump has already been in the White House and dealt with the opposition already. What does that mean? So by that logic, Tim, would you say that Joe Biden is a better candidate to be in the White House than Vivek Ramaswamy? No, you would not. Would you say that somebody else that's on the right, George W. Bush, is a better? No. You wouldn't say these things, bro. Which more so speaks to the fact that all of you know, including Trump supporters, that Vivek Ramaswamy is a once in a lifetime, once in a generation talent that we've ever seen come through this race before. And you all are blinded to your allegiance, not to America as you claim, not to somebody that you claim is going to drain the swamp and clear out the deep state. He was in office once already, didn't do any of those things, right? Has 91 federal indictments. We're going to overlook all of that because all of it is a conspiracy. None of it is going to hold up. But okay, all the baggage that comes with Trump. As rude as this man is, yes, there are many times he's not rude. But the man is rude. He stumbles over his words. He says crazy things all the time. He carries himself like a dictator. Not all the time, but sometimes. He says things and contradicts himself. Not to mention every single person that he's ever... all these people that he's appointed to these positions that he says one thing about at one point and then completely flips.
Understands that the job of Attorney General is to serve and protect the people of the United States. And that is exactly what he will do and do better than anybody else can. Jeff Sessions was a disaster as Attorney General. Should have never been Attorney General. He's not qualified. He's not mentally qualified to be Attorney General. We hope Bill Barr is going to be as good as we think because Bill is he's a great gentleman, a great man. And by the way, when Bill Barr, who's, a coward, Bill Barr was a coward. Bill Barr didn't do what he was supposed to do. I fired him and he has great hatred. In his new role as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley will serve as my top military advisor. I have absolute confidence that he will fulfill his duty with the same brilliance and fortitude he has shown throughout his long and very distinguished career. Milley, frankly, was incompetent. The last one I'd want to attack with as my leader would be Milley. John Kelly will do a fantastic job. General Kelly has been a star, done an incredible job thus far, respected by everybody, a great, great American. I know John Kelly. He was with me, didn't do a good job, had no temperament, and ultimately he was petered out. He was exhausted. This man was totally exhausted. He wasn't even able to function. I am confident that Jay has the wisdom and leadership to guide our economy through any challenges that our great economy may face. And, I had my own situation with Powell, and I beat the hell out of him. I was not a big fan of Powell. He was recommended by some people. I didn't like him. We are going to appoint Mad Dog Mattis as our Secretary of Defense. They say he's the closest thing to General George Patton that we have, and it's about time. It's about time. Mattis was a highly overrated general, didn't do the job, didn't do good on ISIS. Mattis was fired, as you know, by President Obama, and I fired him also. Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State. Going to do a great job. He's respected all over the world, and I think he's going to go down as one of our great, great secretaries.
In an angry tweet this morning, he called Tillerson, quote, dumb as a rock and totally ill-prepared and ill-equipped to be Secretary of State.
Mark Esper, who is a highly respected gentleman with a great career, West Point, Harvard, a tremendous talent, was just named acting Secretary of Defense.
He has said, quote, you were a lightweight, a figurehead. He said Mark Esper was weak, totally ineffective. He said he would do anything I wanted.
Secretary Chow, you've been so fantastic in so many ways. Transportation, it's just moving along, and you've done a fantastic job for me and for the country, and I appreciate all that you do.
In his post on Truth Social, Trump said McConnell, quote, has a death wish and must immediately seek help and advice from his China-loving wife, Coco Chow.
Oh my God.
Did you see that video? Are you going to be blind to that? They say at some point when you're in a romantic relationship and you're constantly having the same problem with each partner, at some point it's not them. It might be you. You might want to look in the mirror. But Trump supporters don't behave that way. So anyways, there's the number one big reason, the first big reason why Vivek was never going to win this election, because you have these occult-like members that have this allegiance not to America, but to Donald J. Trump. Make no mistake about it. They don't care about anything else but vengeance. And when Trump gets in there and not do the things that all the things that he says he's going to do, very much like his first term, you'll see exactly what I mean. Why? Because it's weird that they feel like they have to save Trump or have Trump's back throughout this fight, when this man is literally a billionaire, brushing shoulders with all the same people that they claim that they're against. Bill Clinton, he was brushing shoulders with Jeffrey Epstein. Sure, he wasn't on Jeffrey Epstein's travel log, but what I'm talking about is he's in several photos and has been intertwined with Jeffrey Epstein in many scenarios. It's not a secret. But you all feel like you can relate to him. This is a billionaire. He runs in a completely different circle. He wouldn't do half the things for you that you claim that you'll do for him. You got this character, Laura Loomer, or whatever her name is. I mean, the most toxic Trump supporter I've probably ever seen in my life. And she has a following. Fake lips, heavy makeup. She hounds people. She's attention seeking. The lady says she likes Vivek, but at this point, nobody can ever convince her anything but other than to vote for Trump. That's a person that's saying Vivek is the better choice, but I'm not going to look over there. Yes, I can't find anything bad about him, but yes, I can't. No, but I'm going to look at Trump. That's blindness. That's toxic. That's unhealthy. That's not logical. But I shouldn't expect anything less from her. And then this woman goes on Twitter and says that after Vivek Ramaswamy took a picture with some supporters, like random people that came to one of his campaign events, that said, "Say Trump, vote Vivek." Literally nothing bad about that. She goes on Twitter, flips on Vivek, just like the typical Trump supporter. They do whatever Trump do. Trump came out, said a little bit of this and that about Vivek that was a little bit critical, said if you vote for him, you're voting for the other side. And then this person, Laura Loomer, I'm only mentioning this woman, for one, she's very annoying. Two, she has a following. And a lot of people are agreeing with this woman. Goes on Twitter and says, Vivek should have stayed in his place. What does that mean? What is the undertone behind that statement? He should have stayed in his place? He's literally a presidential candidate. What the heck does that statement mean? Which speaks to the very next point that I'm about to make as it pertains to why Vivek Ramaswamy was never going to win this campaign, was never going to win this run, was never going to become president, because of the undertone behind a white woman talking about he should have stayed in his place. You mean the man that's almost a billionaire? You mean the intellectual superior to Donald J. Trump should have stayed in his place? What does that mean? And does anyone find it weird that in the early 2000s, Donald J. Trump, it was predicted by The Simpsons that this man was going to not only become president, but they got the same picture of him going down the escalator.
We've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Secretary Van Houten?
We're broke.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President...
That is weird. And I don't want anybody, unless you're on the left. If you're on the left, you're allowed to call this a conspiracy theory. But people on the right, don't you dare. Because there's many things that you all talk about, from the January 6th riot and all the insurrection, all these things. Don't you dare. All the things y'all talk about that people call conspiracy theories. So don't you call it a conspiracy theory. No one not find that weird. Not to mention, no one find it weird that The Simpsons also predicted again that Donald J. Trump is going to be the president again. In like 2015 or something. They did it again. It said Trump 2024. How did they do that, 9 years ago? What are we talking about here? This man didn't have a shot. Vivek Ramaswamy strategically choosing to not insult Trump. You have insults for anybody, right? You have critiques for anyone. I mean, like, you have some things that you wouldn't do, some corrections, some things you don't agree with. But the fact that Vivek has spent pretty much his entire campaign not really doing any of that, I think is smart. Sure, I think there's things about Trump he don't like, but it will be very dumb because he understands that a majority of the Republican Party is for Trump, and they don't care about the truth. They care about Trump. So I honestly don't blame him for it. The last reason why Vivek Ramaswamy never had a chance at winning this election, and it's a reason that a lot of you, especially on the right, are not going to like me hearing me say this, but I don't care. I'm not on the right. I'm not on the left. I'm about truth. Very much so like Vivek Ramaswamy ran his campaign. He called out both sides, Republicans and Democrats. So it's time to call out the conservative side. The second reason why Vivek Ramaswamy was never going to and never had a shot at this, or at least a decent or a fair shot, is because of racism. Let's be clear. Apurva Ramaswamy, Vivek Ramaswamy's wife, interviewed or was talking to this lady I believe in the state of Iowa, while they were doing the Iowa caucus, and asked this lady some of the reasons that she's hearing on the ground that people are skeptical or a little bit hesitant to vote for Vivek Ramaswamy. And while I admire this woman's honesty, I want you to take a listen to what she told Vivek Ramaswamy's wife on camera.
What do people say gives them, like, oh, I can't vote for him because what are the things that they tell you? What answers can I help you provide?
Let me go ahead and stop you. That's not a good sign when a person asks you a question like that, and then you got this just calling it for what it is, this older white couple in Iowa. They look at each other. Why are you looking at each other? That can mean one or two things from my perspective. One, I don't know. What do you think? You're not so sure what the answer is, so you look at your partner to see if they know, to see if you can get ideas from each other. Or two, should we tell her the truth? Should we be honest with her? Are you going to be honest with her, or should I be honest with her? I don't want to be honest with her. That's how I look at that first and foremost. So that's already not a good sign in my opinion.
Well, the only one I've had, and I couldn't even remember who said that to me, but they mentioned it's dark skin, and they think Muslim right away. And so I kind of set them straight on that, whether they believe I thought I was covering for it. I don't know, but and I tried to explain.
There's not much we can do about that one.
Well, there's nothing good.
So you had a question about religion?
Just your thinking on
Our faith, yeah. So we do not come from kind of the traditional background for most presidential candidates. We are Hindus.
What does that mean? He has darker skin. What did you just say? What does that have to do with running for president? They feel like he might be Muslim. What? Huh? How do you just have these assumptions about people? It's the same thing that they said about Barack Obama, who I have my critiques about, as far as his policies and what he actually did once he got in office, or didn't do once he got in office. But it had nothing to do with him being Muslim or not. These preconceived, a lot of time, racially biased notions that you have about people that are darker than you, which raises a bigger question for me, because I never doubted. I never said that racism, and I'll never argue that racism isn't a real thing. I don't think anybody would argue that, right? But it's weird. It's like, that if I was her, I would thank her for being honest with me. Like, did you see Apurva's reaction? There's not much we can do about that. This woman just told you straight to your face that the reason why a lot of people are not going to vote for him is because he has darker skin. What? They're being honest with you. I shouldn't say always. I've said for a while that the worst kind of racist is probably a white liberal, because they'll be a part of the fight with you, but they're still struggling and fighting their own biases and racial, notions that they have about people, but pretending like they don't have them. Then you have your white conservatives that sometimes that statement I just said can apply to them as well, but they'll pretend like it's about everything else but race. But sometimes they'll be directly honest with you, like this woman was. And I can appreciate that, because that's just the truth of it. Donald J. Trump isn't just who he is because who he is. I think he was placed there, not by the people, by the way. I think by the powers that be. But also the reason why he's so accepted, because he's white. Call it for what it is. Do anybody not find it a coincidence that most of presidential candidates in history, not the presidents themselves, we can talk about that too, but most of the presidential candidates, those that have even made a long run in presidential runs before, have all been white. Have all been white. Why is that? Because they don't have the money to back them. They don't have the people to back them. They don't have the support to back them. They don't have the know-how to back. What is that about? That's the second reason. Racism is the second reason, and I think it's fear. When you look at a man like Vivek Ramaswamy, he's heads and shoulders light years above and better than Trump. You're not finna put someone that's up, and he's of the Hindu faith. You're gonna feel like that's un-American. Tell the truth, shame the devil. I'm gonna end with this rap, this little short verse from J. Cole that 100% applies to Vivek Ramaswamy and caps off why he was never gonna win this race. See, when you spitting so real, suddenly these phony people lose their appeal. Got them feeling like my brothers when they lose their appeal. Now it's back to the cell, back to the hell. Sometimes I watch the news and see they talking about diplomacy, and they ain't got a clue. My homies ain't got their diplomas, see? Rappers showed me love, I wonder what it could be. I think they scared of me, and they should be.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.